later, but okay. I'll just say, got it. All right. And let's see. Okay, this whole thing of freedom colonies. I'll have to admit, I did not know what a freedom colony was until maybe like 6 years ago, when I knew about this book that was published in 2005, and I hadn't really read it. It's one of those things that I knew about it, but that's about it. And because mainly at the time I was more interested in Spanish colonial stuff, and also I had gotten interested in and I've been doing more uh, uh, 20th century stuff with sort of like a CRM work with at the university here. So I was certainly learning and a number of the sites were African American. So I was kind of getting I was getting prepared for it, even though I didn't know it. You know, it's one of those weird things. But uh, so anyway, these freedom colonies, these are the areas where the freed enslaved people went to live when they were free. That's after emancipation. Okay. And and this book written by Thad Sitton and James Conrad, they identified over 300 freedom colonies, which is a bunch. I mean, it kind of, when you think about it, it's the first thing I was thinking about was, well, I think when I was working in Louisiana, there were things that were similar, and they didn't call them freedom colonies, but they were sort of like, there was maybe a half dozen of them or so. And in Oklahoma, I knew of a couple too. So in the nearby states, I knew of these sites, but I didn't realize there were so many, and especially in Texas. And I think there's a reason for it. And it's just, I'll just say I've been kind of speculating about this. I'll just throw out that speculation is that I believe that in Texas, this slavery came late to Texas. And it was, I think it was just as brutal as it was everywhere else. You know, you can't say it was, oh, they were so nice in Texas. No, I don't think it was. But there was a whole lot more space around here. I mean, and there was a ton of room. So, and there was plenty of room for these freedom colonies. Basically, when you had the emancipation of the slaves, it was basically after the war was over. That's when they really became well. That's when the Southerners realized, okay, we got to do this, and so they did free the slaves, and that's when they and the areas that they went that the formerly enslaved people went, they were usually areas that were nearby but had not been occupied. So that's all the ones that I've looked at. That's where they had been. Anyway, and now Andrea Roberts, and she got her degree at University of Texas at Austin. She got her first job at Texas A&M. She didn't stay there long, but she got this great website going, and now she's at the University of Virginia. So, but she came back this last summer, and she's still in charge. I mean, of the Freedom Colonies project. It still is a project, and now it's gone. She's now thinking in terms of the whole Southeast, basically. Okay, well, here's the little area that we have. Here's Texas. Here's SFA. That's SFA. And here's Louisiana, of course. And here's Sand Hill. Here's Schenkelville. And here's Mount Union. These are the three that I was looking at initially that I was going to do when I got this Summerlee Foundation grant. I thought, okay, I'm going to do 3 freedom colonies, and these are the 3 I'm going to do. So anyway, but we didn't get to Mount Union. We're still going to, it just didn't work out this time. And I'll have to say, Herman Wright, I'd met him when I first came to SFA. Herman became I forget what they called it. We had a heritage center. Now we don't. That's one thing that was bad that went away, but that went away some time ago. I don't know. Anyway, but Herman was one of the research fellows with the Heritage Center, and he invited me to come do archaeology. And I'm thinking, wow, this is great. But at the time, I didn't really know enough about African American, or for that matter, even the American artifacts. So I just told them, okay, look, give me some time and let me learn this stuff, and then I'll come see you. Anyway, but as time went on, of course, he I believe I don't know, you hear various things, but he's not in the best of health now, basically. So anyway, but we are going to do this. So, but he's from this what's called Mount Union, and we've got on this side we've got Herman Wright, and over here we have Jamie Bollock, and they are not related by blood, but they're related by marriage. And what happened there down in Mount Union, there was a guy who during plantation times, he had children with a black woman, and he took care of them and all that kind of stuff. And when emancipation came, they told him, his family members told him, well, you can't marry her. And he said, well, I have to take care of, I've got kids by her. And said, well, that's okay. All right, you can give her some land, give her money, whatever, but you just can't marry her. And so that's what he did. And that's what formed this freedom colony around Mount Union. It was this gift of land to this woman. And then he married a white woman, and he had children, and they ended up with like Jamie's at the descendant of all those kids, and Herman is the descendant of all of the black kids. So they're not, I don't know, I guess they are related by marriage. I don't do genealogy, so I'm not that good with it. But anyway, and Herman and Jamie is she was a journalist, apparently. I think she worked for Houston paper anyway for a number of years, and now she's retired, of course. But anyway, they wrote this book called Arvetta, which is Herman's grandmother, and it is a fictionalized account. Okay, they don't, and I don't know if that's just how they decided to do it. There's another example of a white man marrying a African American who was a slave and all that, and they also told it in a fictionalized account. And I don't know. I mean, maybe that's the way they have to do it. But so the only thing that kind of bothers me a little bit is, okay, when you're reading it, you're thinking, okay, what's fiction and what's not? I don't know. I mean, but anyway, so this this book is available if you'd like to buy it. It's Arvetta, they call it, and it's a print on demand, I guess. So you can call them up and you can get a copy of this book. But anyway, and then there's Shankleville, and Shankleville is that's the one when I first heard about this, they said, okay, let's see, oh shoot. Okay, there's Harold Odom. He's been doing a lot of work there. And then there's Laretha Clay. She has been also doing work. And I don't know if any of you know her, but she used to work for the Texas Historical Commission. And she was with the Friends groups. Now she's retired. But anyway, but she was able to get a lot of the THC focused on Schenkelville. So that's when I Googled, I wasn't even, the guy who told me was the president of the Deep East Texas Archaeological Society. And he was like, he was a German guy that has, he speaks real good English, but he has a bit of an accent. And he told me, well, there's this lady, she called me and she wants us to come do archaeology. And I said, okay, well, all right, where does she want us to do archaeology? And he said, oh, it's in Schenkelville. I said, okay, where's Schenkelville? He said, it's north of here. And anyway, so I just figured it was a plantation that, and I figured that the lady who called this president, I figured that she was probably a white woman. So anyway, I went home, and when I Googled all this, there was all this THC stuff, and THC had been really involved with it since about, I don't know, maybe at least since the 2000s anyway. And they had put one of the houses, the main house associated with this property here, on the National Register, which is also, my goodness, I mean, that just blew me away. But then they explained what a freedom colony was. And I thought, oh, wow, this is cool, So that's my kind of first introduction to, other than the book, which I half knew about, but this made it more real, I guess, for me anyway. So, and then I met Andrea Roberts, and Andrea is, of course, like I said, she was at UT, and then she ended then A&M, and then she ended up at University of Virginia. But what she did was she put together this website at the Texas Freedom Colonies at Texas A&M. And so all the people, and I think she did a wonderful job. She took a couple years and really got it to where all of these maps, it's all this GIS stuff. And she had a GIS expert who was with her, at A&M. I guess it was pretty easy to find him, but anyway, he did a great job. And here you see the Freedom Colonies, and the green, the red, and the blue. They're three different stages of data entry for Freedom Colonies. And here there's over 500 of those. So this just blew me away when I saw all this. And so, well, I got the Summerlee Foundation grant, and it was like I say, Laretha had told me, she had said, well, I can't get money from them anymore. I've already gotten money from them. And she said, why don't you try getting money? So I did. And at the same time, Jim Brousseth, he of course had retired, but he told me the same thing. We were talking at lunch at this, how it was a Real Places conference in Austin, and he said that he was on the board of the Summerlee Foundation, and Laretha said she knew the president of the Summerlee Foundation. So I thought, wow, that sounds like I got a pretty that it won't be too hard to get at least one grant from them. And so that's what I did. And so I got Sarita Green. She's also related to Schenkelville. And she was working here. Now she's working in California. She's a PhD, and she's a educator. She's a dean out there. A dean of, I forget, I think a student dean, I guess. So anyway, but so I got her involved, and then got Rolanda Teal. She's from SFA, and I got Rolanda mainly because my boss, Ray Darville, he knew Rolanda. I knew Rolanda from way back. I knew her my previous job in Louisiana. I met Rolanda there, it was maybe 20 some odd years ago. So, and now Rolanda is a PhD. And anyway, she's doing other things. So she just wanted to do a very small part. And she put together a questionnaire for the volunteers, basically. And then there was, and I don't have a picture of Jackson Clay, but he was the videographer. I wanted to have a videographer of the project. I thought, wow, we got to do this, and we have to do it right. You know, I could maybe hold a video camera, but I knew I couldn't do a good job of it. So I figured, okay, we have to hire this guy, and he had been working with the Schenkelville project, and so. And he did a great job. And he, in his little resume, I noticed he had he's got a bachelor's degree, and he had in there, he had done a project with LeBron James, and I'm thinking, I know who that is, but anyway, but it was just a totally different approach, and I'd seen some of his videos. And they were so cool. You know, it's like they would ask things that I wouldn't even think about, you know, and present it in such a way that I wouldn't think about doing. So I thought, wow, that's who we need. We need someone who's not going to be boring like me, you know. And anyway, so that's who we had with the grant. And of course, here's Sand Hills, Schenkelville, and Mount Union. This is sort of a blown up or a zoomed in area, I guess. And it just shows you that when you're looking at this, the thing that strikes me is, okay, look at this county, Angelina. There's only one, and that's on a national forest. Why are there so few in Angelina? And you've got them in Nacogdoches, you've got them in Shelby, St. Augustine. And look, there's only one in Sabine. And I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of new to this, so maybe well, in Polk County too, there's very few. But in these two counties, Jasper and Newton, there's a ton of them. And so I don't know if well, anyway, but Sabine, I guess it's mostly national forest there. And maybe the National Forest hasn't done anything with freedom colonies. I don't know, but and Lufkin also, they can say the same thing. They've got national forest too, but St. Augustine has national forest, and they've identified a whole bunch of them. So I don't know. Anyway, but you have questions, or I have questions about this. And okay, so the work we did at Schenkelville, this is a map that John Jefferson did, and he's now a steward. And I guess he still is a map maker, a surveyor. I guess once you become a surveyor, I think you always do it because he's retired and he's got all these maps, just a whole ton of them, and so he made the map for us. He and Keith Stevens rather. So, and this is when we first went there. There was at Schenkelville anyway. There was this idea that down here, okay, this is the road. It goes down through the forest and it cuts through a major hill here, and I mean, it was a very, very significant. They must have went through there with carts because it was a major road. You couldn't miss it. And also up here, there were these little things here. These are crepe myrtles. They were huge crepe myrtles. And I'm thinking, good grief. And the story was that Jim and Winnie Schenkel, who actually are the people who started the Schenkelville community, they built a house here, and supposedly they planted these crepe myrtles, and that's, and I mean, there are no crepe myrtles. There's a house. I don't know. Can you see my little cursor?
Actually not. I can't.
Okay, all right. Well, shoot. Well, okay. Oh wow, it's pretty big. Anyway, but um well, shoot. Anyway, uh so that's what they asked us to do, was to go down there where the crepe myrtles were and to do some archaeology and to see if there was anything around there. So that's what we did. We started with metal detectors, and then we dug these one by ones. Uh and also we dug one. Okay, if you can see the it says 7 TUs right next to the crepe myrtles. Um, I hope you can see that. And then there's seven little squares here. And then in this box up there, it's just enlarged a bit. So I don't know if you can see that, but and then we did these shovel tests along the western edge of it, just to kind of see what would happen. And it turns out there's artifacts all in here, all in. There wasn't any around the crepe myrtles, which was interesting, but we found them all west of the crepe myrtles, and there was a bunch of stuff. You know, no one had been back there. There was no indication that they had been there. You know, if you want to call them pot hunters or whatever, nobody had been back there. So it was a kind of like, you know, sort of like virgin territory, I guess. And what we found, here's what we found. And this is, it's not a color picture, but it's in the Texas Archaeological, the bulletin of the Texas Archaeological Society, I think from 21. That's when it was published anyway. So, but here you have like, there's a sad iron. This is, the handle's broken off. And then, boy, I wish you could see, but describing some of the artifacts.
Actually, we can see your cursor now.
Oh, okay. All right. I have to go over there. Okay. Well, that's good to know. All right. This is just a little medicine bottle, but it's the seam starts all the way up here, it goes all the way, and it goes all the way to the top. So it's from top to bottom is a seam. So that means this little bottle dates after, say, 1903. So, and the sad irons, I don't know, they're hard to date. But anyway, this is a wagon part, some kind of a wagon part. These are carriage bolts. This is part of a chest. This is a spur that's kind of interesting. It almost looks Spanish to me. This is a wagon part. We found this little arrowhead in there too. Not arrowhead, okay, projectile point. And if we go over here where they're at, the only thing where the artifacts were, I don't think there was how do you want to say? I don't think any of them were like, there was a concentration right here, but it was not a pit. I think there was a big old stump where this you could still see it, see the taproot going down here. I think it covered all of this around here, and I think they were just dumping stuff. And that projectile point was found very close to the surface, 7 centimeters, and then all this other, this was below it. These were below it. This was above it. So it's, I don't know. This is, and then by the time you got to about 20 centimeters, there wasn't anything. So, but, and let's see if we go. Okay. Oh, I think, well, here's a file. This is like a nut on a big long bolt, and I was told this is part of a plow. Here's another part of a plow, sort of a plow point, here's railroad spikes, and these are small ones. These aren't the big ones that, you know, the bigger ones that they go about like this. These were all small ones, and this one was really small. These two are about the same size, but this one was real small. So they must have, I don't know if there was a logging railroad in there or something. I don't know. And then there's this. This was a wagon thimble, and this is what I was told that it was. I was told all this. I didn't know what any of this. I knew what these were. I knew what this was, but these things I'd never seen these before. And Keith Stevens, he's the one who knew all this stuff, and so he was telling me what it all was. And okay, here were there's machine cut and there's wire nails. Okay, and this is let's see, I can't really see what shovel test it is, but it is from a shovel test, which is smaller than the 1x1 here. But look at all these nails. And there was both machine cut and wire nails. So that means it could be both, you know, late 1800s, early 1900s. And you had a little bit of whiteware and some unidentified iron. And another one, not as many artifacts, but here you had machine cut and wire nails. And this is a triangular file. And these are all at the same scale, which is down here. And it was rusty, but it was broken also. This is slate, which is interesting. And this is a button, more whiteware and chain links. And let's see. Oh, that's it. Okay, I guess those are the only ones I showed. But anyway, those artifacts, they were basically, they had been burned too. Let me say, this one was burned, this partially burned, this was partially burned, and some of these, this was burned and this was burned. But when iron gets burned, boy, it will not rust. I mean, it was just perfect. And the rest of these, and this was also, whoops, oh, doggone it. These burned ones are perfectly preserved, but they're burned. So I'm guessing that this part of the site, maybe that's where they were burning things. And this slate, this is really interesting. I don't know. I might talk about that later, but anyway, but after the dig, we would always show the artifacts to the Odom family if they were around. And I tried to organize it so that they were around. And we also had help from the, I don't know if it was the Boy Scouts or if it was just a youth group, but there were boys and girls in it. And they were basically high school age. So we did several projects with them. And then this project we just did with here's the president. Here's the guy who's telling me about the lady who called him. He's the German guy. And let's see, this is Keith Stevens, and that's me there. And it looks like I'm saying something that Keith is saying, oh no, you know, you're crazy, George, you know, just, and I probably did. I probably was just saying it all wrong, but anyway, but it still was a lot of fun. And of course, okay, then we'll go to Sand Hill, and this is located, of course, in Nacogdoches County. And while Schenkelville is pretty well tucked away, I mean, you have to know where you're going, and you got to know that, okay, Schenkelville's down there, because when you make your turn, that's where you're going, and you wouldn't otherwise make that turn. But this one, Sand Hill, is a community that's right out in the, I mean, this is Highway 21. Whoops, sorry. This is Highway 21 that goes right through there. So it's a major thoroughfare. And here's the cemetery. Here's the church. This is the one that's, and that's still standing. The cemetery is still there. The school pavilion, this was kind of I'm not sure when this was built. Here's the schoolhouse. This was built probably in the 50s, and they tore it down sometime in the 70s. So it wasn't there for that long. Doggone it. Okay. Anyway, this building right here, this is a Masonic lodge. And this was torn down before 1985. That's why I don't understand why it's shown as a standing structure that's occupied. Because it was, there was people who were talking about there being the Masons there, but it was like maybe in the 40s it was torn down. But it seemed to be gone by the time the school was there. And there was another school. That's what I was hoping that other school would show up, and it was right in between this pavilion and this school. It was a smaller school right in between there, and that was the Rosenwald School. And what they believe is a Rosenwald School. It was called the Sherino School, which is now Sherino is located, maybe 5-6 miles to the east. And that's where I thought it was. And so I was looking for buildings, in Sherino. But they were talking, I think the way they were with the Rosenwald School there, I believe they're right, because they showed a picture of it, and it looked like it was not brick. It was a white frame building. And it just looked like other Rosenwald schools.
And it's super friendly. Doesn't like to be picked up, but that doesn't mean anything. I'll pick to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think somebody else must have been talking. Can you all put your phones on mute?
Okay. But anyway, so we were thinking about digging there, but who owns it? Well, the Masons do. Well, do they? No one else was claiming it, and there aren't any Masons around anymore. Any that are living anyway. And so we went to Nacogdoches, and we spoke to the Masons. And actually, it's another thing. The Masons, I don't know, I guess it's this way, but it used to be there were white Masons and black Masons, and the white Masons did not recognize the black Masons. And I don't know what it's like now. Maybe they've all, made up and everything. But anyway, but back when this was still around, that's the way it was. And anyway, so we talked to the black Masons in Nacogdoches, and they said, "Oh yeah, you can dig there. It's okay." So we do have permission, and I think I'll get to this later. This is we will dig there, but it's not going to be for this grant. And let me just say that I'm still working on putting all of this together for a report that's going to be due next. It'll be due next year, and there will be a PDF of the report, and that I'll send to you. So you'll have all this information and then some. I guess the one thing I didn't say was with the video. He did a wonderful job. Jackson Clay did a great job with the video. I don't have the link. And when I have the link, I don't know. I guess I don't understand how all this works, but when I click on the link, it turns into some other thing, and then I can't open it. So anyway, I got to call Jackson to see what's up with that. But I highly recommend it. It's a wonderful video. I just let him go, and he came up, the way he told the story was just wonderful. And I would, like I say, I definitely would recommend that. So there's one other thing here. There's another house right here. Now this house exists, and but it's not on the map, which I don't understand. But this house was a store. It's not a, we don't have permission there. We didn't ask, actually, but it was also a house for a juke joint. So, and this was I don't know if you well, I'd heard of them, but they were sort of like a honky tonk. And the blacks call them juke joints. But anyway, and if you want to, I don't know, it sort of loosens the people up if you start talking about or asking about a juke joint, because, oh boy, they all have stories about that juke joint. And anyway, so, but that's another place that I hope we can get permission to dig on. But for this time, all we dug on was right here, and we dug a little bit up here where the Rosenwald School was. And Rosenwald School, Mr. Rosenwald, he was the president of Sears up in Chicago, and he and Booker T. Washington got together, and they decided, this was in the 20s and 30s, that they needed to have schools for the black kids. And so they put together this program. It's mainly schools are in the South, basically, but not exclusively. Anyway, but it was not a freebie. They just weren't giving them away. You had to put something into it. You had to either put labor into it, or you had to put goods into it, or put money into it too. But it's sort of like having a match for this grant. To get a Rosenwald School, you had to put, the community had to have some input. And I think they made it, that made it more important for the community. They sort of became vested in the schools. So anyway, let's see. Okay, then Archie. I've known Archie for a long time. He's from Sand Hill community. He, it's weird how this grant sort of evolved. I don't know. I got the grant. It was awarded just before COVID hit. Then we had COVID, and we couldn't do anything, so we had to wait 2 years of not doing it. And in the meantime, I got Archie on board. I got Rolanda on board, and anyway, it turned into a much better grant. Actually, I really needed Archie. He's retired. He grew up in Nacogdoches. He did not grow up in the Sand Hill community. His mother did, but then he grew up in Nacogdoches, and then he's retired now, and he lives up in Dallas. So, but he has a passion for cemeteries, and he will come down. Just he learned all the cemetery stuff, how to clean them and all that kind of stuff, and he's driving all over now, and all over Texas anyway. But he's really doing great. Okay, and here's some of the others we had a video at. Here's what the school looks like, and you can see where it was. I mean, it shows the tiles and everything. And here's Archie. This is Faye Colston Lampkin. This is Manny Childress. Manny is sort of like, he's the caretaker. He's a, oh boy, I was going to look this up. I didn't look it up. Doggone. Okay. I believe he's an elder in the church. So, and his job is to look over this area. This area here is owned by the church. So, and they said that, we could do that. We could work there. So that's how we had permission. And Manny was there all the time, which was wonderful. And this is that, and they recorded an interview with them. So, and Velma Roberts, she was also involved in the interviews, but she was, I don't have a picture of her because she called. Manny just said, I'll call her up. And he called her up and he had some questions for her and she had, answers and all this kind of stuff. So, and the guy who's doing this, his name is Jason Reyna, because Jackson couldn't fly up. And so we had Jason, and Jason, he could shoot the videos, but he couldn't edit them. And so we just sent the raw footage from Jason's video down to Jackson, and Jackson then put it all together. So anyway, and this is Archie's brother, Donald. He chose not to be interviewed. He was a real character. I don't know. The guy was huge. He's like maybe 6'7", super tall. He was great digging, and he just had he's just a character. You can kind of tell he's wearing a Santa Claus hat. So anyway, and this is Briley, and she found this. They were calling it a sword. And I didn't know what it was. I thought, well, okay, this is cool. And I said, let me take a picture of it, and then I'll see what I can find out about it. And it turns out she found this near the area of the Masonic Lodge. So I was thinking, well, maybe it's a Masonic sword or something, but no, it's a bayonet. It's a Japanese World War II era bayonet. So that you can see how long this was. I mean, this is the ones that the U.S. used. They were about this long, and this thing is super, super long. But anyway, so she had. I thought it was interesting that she found it, and we'll have to see what more we can do with this. But okay, as far as the artifacts, any artifacts that were found, they belong to the people who found them, or to the basically, I should say they belong to the landowner. That was it. And we SFA, we're holding the artifacts now while we can take pictures of them and study them and all that. Once we're done, they go back to Sand Hill, and the same thing at Schenkelville. All those artifacts go back to Schenkelville. And I didn't want to get a whole bunch of artifacts because I don't know, I felt okay. And this is something I'm going to talk more about this later, but there's a reason for it. And let's see. Okay, this is all we had at. I understand that since I've been coming here, people in the archaeological communities, they have metal detectors. Everybody has a metal detector. And this is John Jefferson. He's the guy, he's the map guy, but he's got a metal detector. Here's Tom Middlebrook. We kind of talked about him before. He's got a metal detector. Let's see. There's Manny, and this guy is a new guy. His name's Reagan Ratliff, and he's got a metal detector. He was like an expert. Here's Lori Horn. She's the only one who didn't have a metal detector. Everyone else did. And here's this is Keith Stevens. He also had a metal detector. So that's what we did. But man, metal detecting is scary. How quickly you can get artifacts. All we didn't even metal detect for a whole day at Sand Hill. Here you can see this is an aerial photo, and you can see exactly where the school was. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts, because all these concrete things, they just left them there. When they tore down the school, they just left it. So I don't know if you can read it. All these, some of these are they're hits where nothing was found, and other ones are, here's a STU2. We found a manhole there, and I'll show you a little picture of that. That's kind of weird. Here's where the Rosenwald School was, right up in here. That's where we found I'll show pictures of this, but there was a window weight. I didn't know what that was. Anyway, figured it out, and it's the old windows. They used to have weights because they were so heavy that they could go up and down. And it was not from this school, though, because they didn't have window weights. They had window weights in the older buildings, basically. And let's see, there's another, this is STU1 right here. And I'm going to talk about that one later. And STU2 with the manhole is here. And let's see. Okay, I guess that's all I gotta talk about. So, okay, here's Jason. He's our videographer, and here's something we found. Have any of you heard of a Navarro brick? I don't know if anybody. Well, this is where it was located. This is STU1, which is a 50 by 50 centimeter unit. And it was oriented directly north-south. Okay. And as you can see here, it was broken. It was broken here, and they put it together. And the whole thing was all beat up. And on the back, there was mortar. So I'm wondering, this is curious. Why did they pick this one brick? And where they put it was very close to the entryway. If we go back, here's ST1. The entrance was right here. So now, but this is oriented north, south, east, west, and this is not. I don't know. Okay. So this is something that was curious to me, and that's all. And I found other curious artifacts. I won't get into it, but I think there is something that I don't even know what you'd call it. And I'm trying not to use a couple of words, but I don't know. I'll say it's sort of like it might be something called hoodoo, and a belief in hoodoo. And there was people in Nacogdoches who did it, and possibly out here. So that's just a thought anyway. Okay, here's the window weight. This thing, it's a hunk of iron. It's really heavy. And this was, it looked like there was a perforation there, or like a hole there, and it was all rusted in. And that was found where the so-called Rosenwald School was located. Here we found this is this STU2 with, that's a manhole cover. What's it doing underneath 40 centimeters of sand? I don't know. But all of this was obviously brought in. And this was the old surface was right here. And then there was just all this dirt that was brought in. And just like it for this, there wasn't anything weird about that. That's interesting. But so I'm thinking that this was right in front of the school. I'm thinking that there was an old surface there, and that's what it is. Okay, these are just some things, electronics. I don't know what they are, but I believe that's what it's not iron. So I think it's something electrical. This is iron. I think it might also be electrical. I don't know, but this is again metal detecting. And let's see. This is probably, this is more metal. I don't know what that is. This is a piece of glass, which was flat glass, and there's a bunch of that. I think it was window glass, you know, just flat glass. And then these are, I don't know if you can see the pattern here. It's like a fiber board, but anyway, and then these are both drawer pulls, and this is chewing gum. And it's actually fairly common to find chewing gum at schools. We've got a school in Nacogdoches, and there's a bunch of chewing gum. It's kind of interesting. So, and I'm thinking if, ooh, can we do DNA analysis and figure out, you know, who maybe was chewing gum or whatever, I don't know. But anyway. And then this is another metal, this is iron, but I also believe that it's part of a electronics feature. And then this was another, this ended up being a bigger unit. And so that's why we've got brick here. There's the smaller pieces of brick, all this glass. This is plastic. And then this is something, I don't know what this is. It's non-ferrous, but it's not. And somebody's saying, well, it's maybe silver. I don't know. It could be silver, but I was thinking, you know, well, looks like it was a 2, you know, and I'm thinking, well, what would a 2 be on there for? So, but I don't know. Anyway, okay, just some final thoughts. I guess my whole thing is that I was thinking about, this is not a one and done project. But rather it's a commitment to the community to participate in some way in an annual get together. And this is just what we have to do. There is a grant that, and I will finish the report next year, and then that grant will be done. But that's not the end of this project. And I think we need to be involved in the Purple Hole Pea Festival. We need to be there. We've been there before. We'll just be there. And if there's any other things that people find that they may want to show us, that's fine. But we need to be there. And with the I haven't been to all of them, but the Deep East Texas Archaeological Society members have been there, and also from Jasper. Actually, they're all, well, the 3 stewards have been, they've been great. And they've been representing the work that we've done there. So anyway, and I was thinking, okay, well, Sand Hill, do they have a public event so that that we could sort of either be part of, or, and they do have, there are events that are going on, but they're family events. You know, there's Archie has a family get together every 2 years. They have a family event. And I don't know, I was thinking that maybe the church or the cemetery is close by, in cooperation with SFA, maybe it could sponsor a more public event. We could do a little more archaeology. We could have archaeology at the Masonic Lodge, at the Juke Joint, do some more at the school. So, but just do little projects at a time, not try to do the whole thing all at once. We'll just do a little bit at a time. And in this way, we can sort of show that, yes, there's archaeological sites here, and they're important, and that they are archives. These are the buried archives, and this is what you can learn from them. You can, of course, learn all about the community with the oral histories, and we want to try to do that some more. But I think to show how archaeology fits in and can be part of this bigger picture, that they can learn some more about their community. And I think the fact that these are freedom colonies, I think that's sort of secondary. These are any type of site, any type of community out there, I think deserves this type of treatment. You can't just go in there once and do your digging and then leave. I think, I don't know. So I am committed, I guess. For as long as I'm at SFA, I will be going to the Purple Hopi Festival, and I'm going to be going to whatever comes at Sand Hill, and we'll see what they can do down at Mount Union too. So anyway, that's it. If y'all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So you said there was 300 of them.
Yes.
Had somebody looked at all 300?
No. They're the archaeology. That's what's weird. The archaeology is, I don't know. Okay. There's a guy that did some archaeology up at a freedom colony in Dallas, and then he retired. So I don't know if he has any plans on going back to that one, but he did a great project, and that's also in that TAS bulletin, the same one that I'm in basically. So, but no, they have not. And it seems like also, I mean, the Texas DOT, they've also done great work at other African-American sites, but when they're done, they're done. I don't know, when they're, when the money's done, then the archaeologists go away. And I don't know, I think my feeling is, okay, I can understand that if your existence depends on it. Mine doesn't. I just say SFA is paying my salary, so I can go back. And as long as I've met SFA, I can still be working. And I can understand if you're doing contract work, it'd be harder to do. But anyway, I think maybe that makes it easier for me, I guess. But oh well. No, I think it's a great opportunity,
Well, guys and gals, do you have any other questions?
I got a couple of questions.
Okay.
I'm a little fuzzy on this. If this post-Civil War,
Yes.
then how long after the Civil War does it take for this community to be established to be considered a freedmen's colony?
Good question.
5 years, 10 years, because they're moving around all over the state.
Wonderful question. That's right.
And they're moving to different communities.
Yes.
Different areas.
Right. So it can be any time between 1870 and 1920.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
And that doesn't, to me, doesn't classify as a freedmen's community.
Well, that's
50 years.
Yeah.
50 years worth.
The year that's extending it way too far.
Yeah, well, that's what they say. I mean, if there's some that were created late, and I don't know why.
Yeah, well, I mean, if right after the Civil War, there'd be maybe a couple of brothers, or some some sort of kinship, and they would get a plot of land somewhere, and they would all kind of move in together, and the little community would grow up, and maybe a little later they'd have a church, graveyard, and stuff like that. But in 20 years, they done moved out and moved someplace else, and somebody else is taking over the land.
Yeah,
and it just doesn't. I don't know. It's kind of you know, in Brazoria County, there's lots of black communities there today that were there just after the Civil War. You know,
Right, and I would,
that's where they, you know, a community formed together. But I don't know. It's just kind of weird to extend it to me way out past 1900.
yeah. Well, like I say, and I don't know about Brazoria County. I'd have to look at that one, but I'm sure there are communities that are not. They're black communities, but they aren't freedom colonies. I don't know how you would make that distinction, other than if it's after 1920, I guess that's what you'd have to say. But that's what Andrea Roberts. That's her deadline, I guess. It goes to 1920.
I don't know. It just sounds funny.
Yeah, yeah. And that you said you had another question?
That, you know, like a lot of your people here know Brazoria County, you know, like right after the Civil War, there were a lot of blacks around Sandy Point, you know, Boney, then out towards Churchill, out in that area, you know, and those communities are still there.
Mm-hmm.
But they're, you know, where their churches has moved. You know, the graveyards have moved. It's different
Mm-hmm.
than originally.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Well,
But you're Navarra bricks from Corsicana.
okay. And by the way, it's a dry press molded brick. It's not an extruded brick. So they're the fancier ones anyway. And I don't know. I mean, they use those dry press molded bricks for the real nice brick buildings. Like there's a building here in Nacogdoches that's all it was made out of, was dry press molded bricks. And it was called Cherry Reds. I don't know. I think they were also from Corsicana. That was a big brick making area.
Yeah, there's Navarra brick, Corsicana red.
Yep. But I do know at Schenkelville, the chimney was made out of dry press molded brick. And for some reason, they used the best brick they could for the chimneys. The rest of they were frame buildings. But anyway.
So the Navarro on the brick, that meant that was for the brick maker.
Yes.
That was the name of the, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think you would want your best bricks for the chimney.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah. But in Nacogdoches, a whole building was built.
Huh.
They called the old red brick building. And that and it was when they tore it down, they sold all the brick. And it wasn't, you know, they just didn't throw them away. They were very careful. Of course,
Sure.
a lot of them broke anyway, but so, and that was like, I think in the 20s, that's when they start, maybe the 20s and 30s, maybe even the teens, I don't know, but anyway.
Okay, team, any more great questions? So George, when you're planning on going to some of their events, you ought to call us. Maybe we might want to go with you or somebody.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
maybe we can
Definitely
help in some way.
Yeah, the Purple Hole PE Festival. Oh, it's going to be in May this year. Normally they have it in July, and it's so hot during July. So they finally decided, no, let's do this in May. And anyway, so that's what they're going to do. But
Okay.
yeah, I'll give you all a holler.
Yep, sounds great.
Yeah.
George, we normally give our speakers something, so we'll send you something in the mail. If you send me your home address
Okay.
by email, that would be great.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I can take it. I had some training on ethics. And I don't believe when I talked to you before, that was before my training. And I thought, sure, I could take it, but now I don't think I can. But thank you anyway.
Okay.
But yeah,
Well, if you work for the state, for example, they can't, you know,
yeah,
and for us working for a big corporation like I did, you can't take it, you
okay,
know, that kind of thing. So
yeah.
I think we're going away from that in the, well, I would say in the world to a point. So, okay, well, hey, I was recording this, so I'm going to stop for fun. I don't know, I'm practicing